Why ADHD makes avoidance feel automatic, and why it's not self-sabotage. Avoidance with ADHD is often misunderstood, even by the person experiencing it. From the outside, it can look like procrastination, indifference, or self-sabotage. From the inside, it feels automatic, almost reflexive. You don't decide to avoid something. Your body and brain pull away before you fully understand what's happening. If you've ever wanted to do something but felt unable to move toward it, this isn't a motivation problem. It's a nervous system response. ADHD avoidance rarely comes from laziness or lack of care. In fact, it often shows up around things that matter the most: important emails, meaningful projects, health appointments, conversations you've been putting off. The more emotionally loaded a task is, the stronger the avoidance can become. This confuses people because logically, caring more should lead to action. But for ADHD brains, caring more can increase pressure, and pressure triggers avoidance. Avoidance is closely linked to how ADHD brains process stress and threat. When a task feels overwhelming, unclear, emotionally risky, or tied to potential failure, the nervous system reacts as if danger is present. That reaction happens faster than conscious thought. Your body shifts into a protective mode, pulling attention away to reduce discomfort. This can look like distraction, scrolling, cleaning something irrelevant, or suddenly feeling exhausted. These behaviors aren't intentional sabotage. They're attempts to regulate distress. One reason avoidance feels so automatic is that ADHD affects emotional regulation. Emotions rise quickly and intensely, especially around tasks that involve judgment, deadlines, or expectations. When emotions spike, executive function drops. The brain loses access to planning, prioritization, and initiation. Avoidance becomes the path of least resistance, not because it's helpful long-term, but because it reduces immediate emotional discomfort. Another factor is past experience. Many people with ADHD have a history of negative feedback around performance. Missed deadlines, forgotten tasks, or inconsistent follow-through often lead to criticism or disappointment. Over time, the brain learns to associate certain tasks with shame or failure. Even when the current situation is different, the emotional memory remains. Avoidance becomes a learned response, protecting you from re-experiencing those feelings. Perfectionism also plays a major role. When the internal standard for success feels high, starting becomes risky. If you can't do something well, you might unconsciously avoid doing it at all. This isn't because you don't want to succeed. It's because failure feels unsafe. Avoidance, in this context, is a way to avoid exposure to judgment from others or from yourself. Avoidance is also reinforced by how ADHD brains experience relief. When you avoid a stressful task, discomfort drops temporarily. That relief teaches the brain that avoidance works. The nervous system remembers this. Over time, avoidance becomes faster and more automatic, because it's been rewarded with short-term relief. Unfortunately, the long-term cost is increased stress, guilt, and overwhelm, which then feeds the cycle. This cycle is exhausting. You want to act. You avoid. You feel guilty. Guilt increases pressure. Pressure increases avoidance. Breaking this cycle requires understanding it, not fighting it. Trying to force yourself through avoidance with willpower often backfires, increasing resistance. Avoidance isn't a moral failure. It's a signal that something about the task feels unsafe to your system. Another reason ADHD avoidance is misunderstood is that it's inconsistent. You might handle a difficult task easily one day and avoid a smaller task the next. This inconsistency leads to self-blame. But avoidance depends on many variables: energy levels, emotional load, context, and prior stress. Expecting consistency ignores how ADHD nervous systems actually function. Avoidance also intersects with overwhelm and decision fatigue. When cognitive load is high, the brain prioritizes survival over progress. Tasks that require effort feel threatening, even if they're objectively manageable. Avoidance becomes a way to reduce load. This is why avoidance often appears alongside burnout. When capacity is depleted, the brain becomes protective. Understanding avoidance as a protective response changes how you respond to it. Instead of asking, "Why am I doing this to myself?" you can ask, "What feels unsafe or heavy about this task?" That shift reduces shame and opens the door to practical adjustments. Safety is the foundation of action. When safety increases, avoidance decreases. One common mistake is trying to eliminate avoidance completely. That's unrealistic. Avoidance is part of being human, especially with ADHD. The goal isn't to never avoid. The goal is to recognize avoidance early and respond with support rather than punishment. Compassionate awareness is more effective than pressure. Another helpful shift is breaking tasks down emotionally, not just practically. A task might be simple in steps, but heavy in meaning. Identifying what makes it emotionally difficult, fear of judgment, fear of getting it wrong, fear of disappointing someone, helps address the real barrier. Once the emotional weight is acknowledged, the task often feels lighter. External support can also reduce avoidance. Body doubling, accountability that feels non-judgmental, and clear external structure help the nervous system feel less alone. ADHD brains often initiate more easily when someone else is present or when expectations feel shared. This isn't dependence, it's co-regulation. Language matters too. How you talk to yourself when you notice avoidance influences what happens next. Harsh self-talk increases threat and deepens avoidance. Gentle language reduces it. Saying "this feels hard" instead of "I'm failing again" can make a surprising difference. The brain responds to tone, not just logic. It's also important to redefine success. For someone with ADHD, success might mean engaging with a task for 5 minutes instead of finishing it. It might mean opening the document instead of writing the whole thing. These small acts build trust between you and your nervous system. Trust reduces avoidance over time. Avoidance often decreases when tasks are made more concrete. Vague tasks feel larger and more threatening. Clear, specific steps reduce uncertainty. ADHD brains struggle with ambiguity. Clarifying what done looks like can reduce the emotional load and make engagement feel safer. Another overlooked factor is timing. ADHD brains have windows of readiness. Trying to force action outside those windows increases avoidance. Flexibility matters. When possible, working with your energy rather than against it reduces resistance. This isn't about waiting forever. It's about choosing moments when your system is more receptive. Avoidance can also be linked to identity. If you've internalized the belief that you're unreliable or inconsistent, approaching tasks can trigger fear of confirming that belief. Avoidance protects your self-image. Rewriting this narrative takes time and evidence. Each compassionate engagement with a task builds new data for your brain. Recovery from avoidance doesn't mean becoming perfectly proactive. It means becoming safer with yourself. The more your nervous system trusts that effort won't lead to punishment, the more willing it becomes to engage. Safety creates movement. Shame creates freeze. It's also important to recognize that avoidance often masks needs. You might be avoiding because you're tired, overstimulated, emotionally overwhelmed, or unclear. Meeting those needs reduces avoidance naturally. Ignoring them increases it. ADHD brains are sensitive to unmet needs, even when those needs aren't obvious. Avoidance isn't proof that you don't care. In many cases, it's proof that you care deeply and don't want to fail. Reframing avoidance as information rather than failure changes everything. It allows you to respond with curiosity instead of criticism. Inside Dopaloop Pro, we talk about avoidance as a nervous system issue, not a discipline issue. We focus on tools and explanations that reduce threat, increase safety, and make engagement feel possible again. If you want ADHD-friendly support that helps you work with avoidance, instead of fighting it, you'll find the link in the description.